The former one-term MP who has really shaken the Ruto presidency. Nobody's talking about that. It seems that many Kenyans have forgotten where Rigathi Gachagua has come from. Indeed, on paper, he's supposed to be a very inexperienced politician. Only one term in parliament. And yet he has shaken the nation of Kenya to its roots. Indeed, Rigathi Gachagua is the new Raila Odinga. When he speaks, the nation listens. But not very many analysts have talked about how Rigathi Gachagua got there. Because there's some very interesting political lessons to learn here. Very interesting tips on how you can come from being a nobody to a nightmare to a regime. Oh yes, Rigathi Gachagua is the Ruto presidency's worst nightmare. I think there's no debate over that. But even more interesting is the motivation. And the motivation of Rigathi Gachagua on my show today is captured in a single image. Surely that should be super fascinating. But what really makes this politician tick? What has brought him so far? Well, we take a very deep look at that. And it is much more than interesting. So please stay with me. I assure you, you'll not be disappointed. A very warm welcome to my show. Twende kazi. I guarantee you one thing. When historians write one day about the Rigathi Gachagua phenomena, they will be much more excited than we are currently living through it, which is understandable because there are a lot of emotions flying around. There is a lot of anti-Kikuyu venom flying around, and therefore it clouds the mind. But I hope today you will join me in stepping back to look at this thing from a political eye to see something absolutely mind-blowing. How does a very inexperienced one-term MP babaisha presidency so much? Oh yes, Rigathi Gachagua of one-term fame is himself a one-term MP. Okay? He served as Member of Parliament for Madeira from 2017 to 2022. And that's it. He has got no other elective credentials on his CV, apart from, of course, his very brief stint as Deputy President of the country. Now let us digest that for a minute, please, without any emotions. How does somebody with very limited political experience, elective political experience, suddenly become the most powerful politician in the country? You will scare happy. By the way, in case you didn't know, Rigathi Gachagua is the new Raila. Oh yes. You want proof? Before, if there was something wrong in the country, you'd hear people discussing, let's get word to Raila. Nowadays people say what? Let's get word to who? Rigathi Gachagua. One-term MP. Now I have to confess that my recent experiment of doing 2 videos on the same subject did not quite fly. And so I have to make a very big effort to keep this one brief, but then also give you the usual thorough, deep analysis. And so let's get to the crux of the subject immediately. How did Gachagua pull this one off? How? What tips can we take away for anybody out there who has political ambitions? Now, to very quickly summarize it, Bwana Gachagua learned from one of the best, but became even better. And then he surrounded himself with some very smart handlers. That's a summary, but it doesn't do justice to what has happened here. Now, I'm aware that many Kenyans do not know that in Kenyan politics, the guru of finding the emotional hook in the politics in Kenya and taking full advantage of it is William Samoei Ruto. Now, I know some of us are surprised, and I know somebody's asking, why doesn't he use the same tricks now to get himself out of the mess and become a more commanding and successful president? Well, the answer to that is very simple. You see, it is much easier to be a rebel than a leader, because anywhere in the world, it is not too difficult to find something that the people are not happy about, and to criticize the government. That is very easy. It is all about emotions, and it is all about finding the right wave of emotions and riding on it. Let me give you a quick example. Ruto shut down the Building Bridges initiative by finding something that Kenyans were very concerned about and very emotional about, and that is leaders creating positions and then giving themselves huge salaries and perks. Kenyans have always been very emotionally against that. And therefore, Ruto's rallying call was that the Building Bridges initiative was all about people creating positions for themselves. Now, that one was very effective because it made a vast majority of Kenyans see red, and they did not want to see anything else beyond that about the advantages of the Building Bridges initiative, which would have gotten us out of even the mess we are in right now, would have saved the country a lot of pain and trouble. Now, why Gachagua becomes better than the teacher and the guru himself is that he's very good at slogans and simplifying things. Wantam will listen to the people, and his DCP party is all about putting your hand right next to your ear, listening carefully to what the people are saying. And you see, the timing for that was perfect, because we have the Ruto regime, which most Kenyans say does not listen to anybody. It can pretend to listen, but it never listens. So here comes DCP and Gachagua, and they're listening to the people. Can you imagine the impact? Well, you don't need to imagine it. We have all seen it, haven't we? But apart from the strategy, there is a much bigger lesson for all of us to take away from this show today. And this is the thing that drives a human being to be very determined to do something. What motivates a man to go over and above the abilities you may think they have, the abilities even they think they have? What can motivate a man to go over and above that? And for this one, Gachagua has to thank Ruto a lot. Ruto did everything. Ruto did an excellent job in motivating Gachagua. How did he motivate Gachagua? By impeaching him. And during the impeachment, the arrogance in the Ruto camp, this man is nothing. We are going to remove him from the deputy presidency and nothing will happen. He can do nothing. He can go nowhere. He will be finished. That was Gachagua's motivation. Now, we talk a lot about human nature on this channel. But let me clarify this so that we're all on the same page. Imagine a situation where you fall in love with this girl, and one day she comes and tells you, I am dumping you for so and so. Why? You're not ambitious, you're poor, I don't see any bright future with you. I much prefer John, who is definitely going places, and you can see already what is happening in his life. There is no motivation bigger than that one. You'll agree with me. Because when that person is dumped by the girl, there are only two things they can do. There are only two things which can happen here. Either that person can completely give up, or they can be energized to overachieve. That's human nature for you. And the scene that cannot leave my mind is that scene of Gachagua walking away with his wife. I'm sure you remember it. And his dear wife was crying. And Gachagua looked very upset. I believe this was after the impeachment. That scene cannot leave my mind. That is where the motivation came from. And I can assure you, if you're a student of human nature like me, you know for sure that Gachagua will not rest, he will not stop until the Ruto regime goes home. Now I can hear somebody shooting back and saying, Chris, no, you're not right. Gachagua is very ambitious. He wants to be president. Yeah, he's going to use us to become president. Okay, let me answer that one. Remember I said Gachagua is the new Raila? Remember, there was a time in 2017 when Raila supporters started pushing him that is the real president, is the people's president, he must be sworn in. Remember? And not in his bedroom, and not in his residency, in a public place. I'm sure most of us remember that. Now Raila and his handlers knew that his mock swearing in will change absolutely zero. But there was pressure from his supporters. And had he disappointed the supporters, mambo ingekuwa mzuri. So what happened? Raila went to Uhuru Park. There was Miguna there. There was Orengo there. And Raila was sworn in with a very carefully worded oath of office to avoid breaking the law. Do you remember that? Fast forward to the present. Many Gachagua supporters have been putting pressure on him. Vie for the presidency. You must vie for the presidency. Now, Gachagua and his handlers know very well that that is a pipe dream. Why? Because Gachagua is impeached. And I don't think it is possible to overturn an impeachment, because an impeachment is a political process. How do you overturn that one? Unless the vote was rigged. Otherwise, there's no other way of overturning an impeachment. And therefore, Rigathi Gachagua, and he knows this, I'm very sure, his handlers know this, cannot vie for the presidency of Kenya. I know many Kenyans have been brushing this aside, but that is the reality. But what did the new Raila still do? He declared that he's going to vie for the presidency. Now I'm very much aware that I'm disappointing very many of you, but I'm sure you come here for nothing but the truth. Okay? Gachagua, being the new Raila, Raila never became president of Kenya. Even Gachagua, the new Raila, is really a kingmaker. A very influential brand new kingmaker in Kenyan politics. If tomorrow Chris Kumekucha marries from the mountain and then goes to Kiambu County and seeks to be governor, and Gachagua comes and says, Kumekucha Chris Toshamboga, I'm going to win that election at 4 a.m. in the morning. Do we agree? The brand new Raila Odinga is here. His name is Rigathi Gachagua. Please let us stay focused on who Rigathi Gachagua really is, okay? Before his recent rise to fame. You remember, when he started off as the deputy president, Kenyans had to dress him. Do you remember his suits? I'm sure you remember. Now, I'm not bashing him. Gachagua is a simple man, just like me. Even me, I don't know how to dress. Okay? He's a simple man. Hii maneno ya masuti kizungu mingi. No. He's a very simple man. A simple man who has risen from virtually nowhere. Yeah, because when he was impeached, he was being thrown back into the cold. A nobody. Yeah, but the problem was, this Mr. Nobody turned out to be Ruto's worst nightmare. Still ongoing. Oh yes, that is exactly what has happened here. And if you still want to downplay the achievement of Rigathi Gachagua, let me ask you a simple question. I thought that when Raila Odinga is not around, the other big heavyweights in the opposition, like Kalonzo Musyoka, what happened? Kalonzo Musyoka would have stepped in immediately and filled in Raila's shoes and we would have felt his impact. Did that happen? No. In fact, we have a very interesting situation these days where it seems that Kalonzo Musyoka has to consult with Rigathi Gachagua. Consult with who? That is the reality. I'm not inventing this. I'm not making it up. That is the reality. I'm not responsible for it. Even if you get mad at me. That is the reality. No wonder at the moment there is a very big war against Rigathi Gachagua. Raila's health, when people want to bash somebody, first on the list is Rigathi Gachagua. When you go online, everything is bashing Rigathi Gachagua. In fact, one particular narrative that has worked very well in bashing Rigathi Gachagua is that people call him a tribalist. Now let's stand back a minute and analyze that. If you're Mr. Nobody coming from nowhere and you've just been impeached and you're very angry and you want to show people what you're made of, will you have your first meeting somewhere in Wajir in a football field? Or will you go down to the coast and start talking to the Waswahili there and convincing them that unatosha mboga? No, that's not how politics works. You start at home. You look for your advantage and you start with the advantage you have. That's not being a tribalist. That is smart strategy. Okay? I just want to challenge everybody who still believes Gachagua is a tribalist. In the comments area below, tell me how you would have done it. Tell me how Rigathi Gachagua should have done it so that he avoids the tribalist tag. Explain to me. Hey, politics does not work how you think it works. Politics is not boardroom manenos. Because you know today, the DCP party is flexing its muscles, a very brand new party, is flexing its muscles well beyond the Morema. Yeah? Even in Western Kenya. Can you imagine that? In other words, the party that belongs to the man you're calling a tribalist is making an impact countrywide. So what you're trying to say is that a vast majority of ordinary Kenyans cannot see that Gachagua is a tribalist. Get out of here. You can't convince me. And I have news for you. You have just fallen for smart propaganda from government bloggers. Hakuna kitu ingine, it is just that. And so, in my opinion, what does the future hold for Rigathi Gachagua? I believe that future is very bright. Because that thing motivating him, which is deep inside him, ni uchungu ya kuvumilia madharau. They dharaued him. They mocked him. They treated him like trash. He has a lot to prove. And that is motivation that cannot be stopped. And I see Rigathi Gachagua as a very important kingmaker who cannot be ignored in Kenyan politics. You may not like him. You may not like Murima. But Rigathi Gachagua and Murima cannot be ignored in Kenyan politics. They have the numbers. Bwana Gachagua has the support from well beyond Murima. He cannot be ignored. Have you asked yourself, why is it that the Ruto regime seems to have no answer for Rigathi Gachagua? They had an answer for Raila Odinga, which they implemented. We have seen the results. They had an answer for very aggressive young activists like Morara Kebaso. We have seen the results. The mighty government of the Republic of Kenya always has an answer for virtually everything. But currently, there seems to be no answer for a man called Rigathi Gachagua. Do you want to convince me that that is nothing? Now, incidentally, in one of my highly sensitive past special reports, I gave a lot of information most Kenyans are not aware of, which is highly sensitive, on Rigathi Gachagua. And a lot of what was said in that special report, some of what was said, has come to pass. Yeah, and I'm talking about stuff which at the time looked like ndoto ya mchana. It has come to pass. And for that reason, I want to throw in that special report with my very latest special report on strange bedfellows. Strange people are talking. We're having very strange unions. People talking to each other from opposite sides of the political divide. And you wonder, what could these people be talking about? And you know, this is in reaction to the new political order in the country. And this man called Rigathi Gachagua has had a lot to do with this new political order in the country. I'm sure you'll agree with me. And therefore I'm throwing in this previous highly sensitive special report with the latest one. Yeah, which is going for only Kenya shillings 2,999. You can see details on your screens right now. Please order it immediately, and you'll also get this super fascinating Rigathi Gachagua info. And by the way, the golden key is still available. The golden key means that you'll be able to get anything and everything kumekucha, yeah, forever, for a one-time payment of only Kenya shillings 6,444. For only a one-time payment of Kenya shillings 6,444. I believe you can see details on your screens right now. This is the better option, the cheaper option. You'll never need to worry again about any special report. And therefore, if you're in a position to, please rush and secure your kumekucha golden key. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.